Hello, welcome to a new episode of the Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Enabling Organization Conversations. Today we are going to talk with Jochen Goeser. And Jochen, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Global Project Lead for Agile Transformation at Bosch Power Tools. So together we are going to talk about Bosch, about its journey, but also about the number of connections that we have found with the journey that Hire went through. Jochen, welcome.
Hello, Emmanuel. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. Would like to tell us a bit more about what Bosch Power Tools does and some of the challenges and also the transformation that you have been guiding in the last few months, or maybe a bit more.
Yeah, no, happy to share. Yeah, as you already stated, I'm leading the project Agile Transformation at the Bosch Power Tools. So many people of you know Robert Bosch company. It's a very big company, and we are one division called Power Tools, who is doing the really cool products that you can use as your DIY or as a craftsman to fix things, to remove things, like the real tough jobs. For the real tough jobs, we have the right tools. And we are in one way a small part of the overall Bosch world, which is highly focused on automotive and other areas. And we are really a consumer goods section of our business. And we started actually a journey not a couple of months ago, but in 2016, we started a journey called Agile Transformation. And I'm happy to share what that is about in the conversation with you.
Thank you. Great. Also for the introduction. Yes, and this is probably a first point that we could raise. In the EEO conversations, we haven't been talking much about Agile Transformation. And today, maybe we can explore this. We can explore about commonalities, but also differences. And in learning about your journey, actually, I discovered a number of points. So I will try to highlight them and to discuss them with you. As a starting point, let's look at what's happening in the market. I think that it's clear that technology is reshaping market dynamics, it's reshaping customer expectations, but also the balance in power between organizations and their consumers. At the societal level, the last year has been particularly difficult due to the pandemics, but also to a number of political changes, maybe a bit less in Europe, but for sure in the US. And I believe organizations have been affected by this in terms of employee disengagement, in terms of the ability to react to these challenges that we are seeing in the market. So we are living in the middle of a huge complexity. Are you seeing this, and how is this impacting your own business?
I mean, of course, the pandemic changed a lot, but I actually wanted to start where we started our journey in 2016. That was way before any pandemic or any other crisis that you just mentioned. But we saw a clear change in the market. Yes, there was a big change in technology, but I think technology is only one element to it, because the technology shapes then also the markets. And we were coming to a conclusion where we said we have I would say top 3 drivers where we see a really action for us to act on these. The first topic is, it sounds like a buzzword, but it's called digitalization. For us as a Power Tools consumer goods business, that means 2 things. First, our total, how we bring products to the market and how we interact with our users is completely changing upside down. How we interact with the market is selling more online, which is a total shift from a traditional retail business. We're trying to sell more direct to our users, which means really the people who are using our tools, and not only the consumers like Obi, Amazon, or whatever, who buy who basically pay our bills, right? And we have much more interaction with the users directly, like a 5-star rating on Amazon praising our products. People want to get in touch with the brand, which we were not seeing before. So that's kind of the user perspective. But digitalization, on the other hand, is also that our products become more and more complex because we have more digital, more software in the tools. We have more safety features in the tools that you don't harm yourself when you use it. So all of that is about connectivity and software in the product. So digitalization is a big driver for us to change. The second topic, I think, is also a topic which everybody talks about, but the shift in the markets. Where is the growth coming from? Where do we see high new opportunities? And that's, as a German, European-based company with a traditional background in the European or Western markets, also big shift. I mean, developed countries are getting more mature in age and seniority, but we have growing markets with very high demands in Asia, Africa, Latin America. So how do we address that? And then last but not least, actually, it's about the real question. I don't want to use the word war for talent, because war is definitely wrong in that context, but how do we find the right people to bring us exactly in these new areas forward, like digitalization? And there we compete for talent with companies in the software tech area, but also where we want to get people to Bosch Power Tools, which probably didn't have a Power Tools company on their top wish list, right? So this collaboration culture is much more about what kind of people we want to attract to the company. And there we basically asked ourselves, okay, are we really user-centric? Are we innovative enough to compete also in 10, 15 years? Because we have a long heritage. As you know, Bosch is 125 years old, and we want to be in the business the next 100 years. So are we ready for this? And are we fast and flexible? I think that's a question we see with other companies. We ask ourselves, who are not in a startup software environment, but who have a heritage, who builds like real stuff that you can touch and feel, right? Like, really, are we fast and flexible, or how bureaucratic, how big have we become to become also very slow and approval workflows? And, are we ready for the future? That was basically our starting point, I would say.
And again, this is resonating because, interestingly, you started from the market and challenges that you see on the market. And the challenges you mentioned are, yes, digitalization, but really being closer with customers, reducing bureaucracy, being more innovative. And to me, this is a strong connection with IR, since IR has been going through this number of revolutions, really to reduce the distance to customers to zero, and to distribute power, decision-making, initiative, innovation at the edges. What are the implications of these challenges in the market that you see within the organization, and why has this brought to an agile transformation?
I mean, at the end, it's like, yes, our tools, our services that we offer, they are made out of real stuff, of things you can touch and feel. But at the end, we clearly see that one of the biggest assets we have in our company are our people. And we really dig deep also to see how are people incentivized, how are they engaged or not engaged in the company. And there we see, I mean, you can read a lot of books. We have also done our own research from all these books. And I think what we resonated well is with this Dan Pink book, also this drive, right? So what is really motivating people? And I think, yes, the easiest solution, he says, solve the money problem at the beginning and put it off the table. And what is left then is not this always bigger carrot in terms of getting incentive via money, but to really have 3 layers, right? The purpose, like, why do we exist? Why are we there? To have this autonomy. People love to be autonomous, right? They want to create their own environment, and we actually want to do that as human beings in our private life. It's so natural that I want to decide where I buy a house or where do I buy a car and whatever. But it seems like in big organizations, we come to a workplace and more of us are kind of blocked for autonomy, and we just wait for getting instructions. And the third point is mastery, to become something really good. And I think with the mastery, there, as a German Bosch engineering company, I think we are very not good at that. It means we need to speed up in turning new skills, but I think that's an easy connection. But when it comes to purpose or also autonomy, I think there was still a huge gap to take over to be ready for the future. By autonomy, I think you find strong supporters. If you translate purpose in German called Sinn, then for some people it gets already very esoteric. And I think you need to be very, very specific to say, what does purpose mean? And this answering this, why you are there and why you are there for people, for the users and for your associates, I think is a very important question to ask at the beginning.
But why the Agile transformation? How is it responding to these challenges? For example, autonomy.
Yeah, I mean, when we say Agile transformation, let's be very honest. Agile is a word that is also in the arena now since a couple of years, and you need to be very specific what you mean with Agile, right? Because otherwise it's a bit like digital. For one, it's like using a laptop or a smartphone, and for others, it's big data and algorithms and AI. I mean, for us, Agile transformation was from the beginning and is until now a journey that is based on 5 pillars. So we defined Agile much more than methods using Scrum or Kanban. So our 5 pillars are actually leadership. So how do we want to lead the organization? How is the responsibility from each one to be a leader in itself? To have, second, a strong collaboration culture. I mean, Agile is based on the theory to have smaller teams that are cross-functional, but what does that mean to a collaboration culture amongst these smaller units? I think that's a big learning when you come from big monolithic organizations to smaller entities. The third layer is for us the organizational aspect. There we actually turn the organization upside down to have like less hierarchy, more cross-functional, end-to-end responsible teams. The fourth layer is then processes and methods. And there I say methods on the one hand side, like learning new methods. That was something that we needed to enable the people, but also adapting our processes landscape to be lean, effective, to have a small but lean governance. And last but not least, it's about strategy. So there is about strategy definition, you know, what is our overall Power Tools strategy connected to our business teams, but also the other way around, you know, understanding the strategy is one part, but really seeing what your daily work as a team contributes to the overall strategy, this connection between strategy understanding and strategy execution, and what is my part in it. That is actually, so these are the 5 layers: leadership, collaboration, culture, organization, process methods, and the strategy part.
Cool. Let's look a bit into some of these pillars. The first one I would like to talk about is the fragmentation of the organization in smaller teams. Why have you done that, and how are you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to sound too theoretical, but I think the beauty of the Power Tools history over the last decades is actually that it has been a very good growth trajectory, right? We have been developing very good and started from being one power tool business to segment into 6 business units. And now we have grown again in over the last decades quite so substantially that we said, well, it's the business units are also very big, and we need to digest this big and making people more feel connected to each other. I mean, there are social models behind to say how many people can you really build a relationship, right? There's also the accountability. You know, if you're in a smaller team, how much are you seen in a positive way? How much are you seen when you struggle? And how can you ask for help? I think this transparency was definitely one of our key areas when we look also in the Agile values and principles, to say this is the connection. When we look at all these different things, Agile principles and values are much more of our embedded thing on the Agile transformation than a method. There the transparency is absolutely key, because they're making problems or focus topics or whatever like visible. Transparent is the first step to see then what do you do with this transparency. And I think that the smaller the teams are in general, you have better chance to make these bottlenecks, these problem areas visible in the organization.
So you went from 6 business units to 54 teams, right? Business teams.
That's absolutely right. However, I would like to emphasize these 6 business units. They serve different user ecosystems. You know, you have professional users, you have DIY users, or you have completely different product areas like accessories, the tools, the parts on the tool that kind of get used and need to be replaced. And these 6 business units, we said, we leave them as a bracket. So we still have 6 business units because they serve different user needs or totally different products. But within these business units, we used to be set up in a very functional way, right? And then formed cross-functional projects to build new products. And within each business units, we actually created these cross-functional, what we call business teams, who are actually staffed or put together with people from different backgrounds, from marketing, from engineer, from quality, from purchasing, etc. But instead of saying you work together as a project and then go back to your home base, to your functional home base, we basically said, no way, this is your new home base, which means we really had the idea that this is actually bringing the most innovative ideas, and it needs to people to really understand each other much better, because there is no way back. There is no, I go back to my engineering club to really complain about the marketeers and they're not understanding my problems. Or the other way around, you know, the marketeers going back to the marketing department and say, oh, the engineers with a motor that's running 5 more times, who cares, right? So they needed to stick together to say, and actually, this is my new home base, and we're solving now user problems, user needs, and there's no way out.
And again, I see an interesting connection because the team is really committed, is really accountable for addressing user needs, as you said. So you are reorienting around the different users. And what surprised me a bit in learning about the story is also that these teams have profit and loss responsibility. Is that right?
Yes, they do. I mean, we separated our business units into different user applications, I would say. You know, if you have a user need, you, Emanuele, want to fix something on a wall, then there's a variety of products that you can buy to solve that problem. And this business team, for example, we call it then really fixing or removing or whatever the task is, has then the responsibility to solve the user needs to really fix something on the wall. And that is the products that we have already on our plate that we want to further develop. But it also challenges the team to think out of the box, because at the end of the day, Emanuele doesn't want a tool to fix something on the wall. He basically wants to have the picture on the wall. So you want to fix something on the wall. If you need a tool for that or not is the second question. And so it also creates a room for innovative ideas to come up with something completely different that helps you to fix something on the wall.
Let's deep dive into a generic team. What kind of dynamics do you see now? What's the difference with the previous structure within a team, and how difficult has it been for them to, as you said, starting to collaborate, to see themselves as colleagues, not the people from the other function?
Yeah, I think for that I need to give you a bit perspective on. We spoke now about these cross-functional teams who have the end-to-end responsibility. This is what we call the business teams. These business teams are actually very cross-functional because they have different functional backgrounds, but they also have like a direct connection to the value stream at the plant. What we call value stream at the plant are people at the assembly line. So we also actually have the end-to-end responsibility, not in terms of numbers, but also in the product value, in the value creation of the product itself. However, or in addition, not however, in addition, we have in each business unit what we call expertise teams. So these are functionally organized teams to support the business teams for services and giving them the lean governance so they can operate more freely. And what I mean with that is, yes, we made more fragmented teams, as you put it rightly. However, we want that those teams are really working on the big new innovations and not start from scratch with everything else we have in place, right? For example, battery. Battery is a big topic in our industry. We don't want that each team starts to develop their own batteries, right? Or their own motors or their own software. When we have connected tools and controlled via an app or whatever, we want to have the same software, for example, everywhere. So we need to have expertise teams who are really serving the business teams. And this interplay between the business teams and the expertise teams, I think is the secret sauce that we not struggle, but where we have, of course, challenges, but which bring also out the best. And when you look now deeper into the business teams, I think it's not hard to imagine that there needs to be a very good starting point to come to better what's the purpose of this team, because the background of these guys is very much different, right? If you are 10 years with engineering department, moving into a new team that is might be led by a business owner who is 15 years marketing experience, you might feel alone by yourself. So you need to make the connections within your team, but you also need to have the connections to these expertise teams that are still out there to form kind of a guild concept to really get the newest ideas from the engineering world still into my business teams. Because yes, I would be the engineer in the team. Everybody looks at me, so I need to be eloquent and need to know the new trends in the market on the expertise of engineering, for example. So it's a very dynamic area. And what we see clearly there, next to having a very strong leader in terms of being integrative, coaching, and visionary, and accountable for what he's doing, we also implemented new agile roles to support that. So this thinking of lateral leadership is, I think, really critical. So we implemented also product owners who basically form a team to say not disciplinary reporting to them potentially, but really feeling end-to-end accountable for a product life cycle. And even more, and not more important, but really important, also the role of what we call an agile master. So agile coach, who is basically not there to tell people what to do, but actually helps the team to find the right methods. Which method is best for our team to make work transparent and to remove roadblocks, impediments for the team to really be a high performance team. So this is, I think, also helping the team to adjust to these new requirements that are coming in, working together in such a new setup.
Let me do a follow-up. So we were talking about the expertise team. Mm-hmm. Yes, the expertise team and the central expertise team. And Ayer has this concept called the shared services platform. So at the end, it's a way to centralize some services, not all the services, so that the organization can enable business teams, in your case, to do their job in the smoothest way possible. How can you guarantee that the expertise team is not introducing bureaucracy, delays, not really supporting the others, but more looking at its belly?
It's a very valid question. I mean, guarantee is a very strong word. So what can we guarantee, right? I think, let me put it differently. I think we heavily rely on expertise, because at the end, you need expertise to bring out great products. I mean, creating a power tool is a complicated thing. There's a lot of technical stuff in there. There's a lot of marketing expertise needed to understand the market. So I think we need these expertise desperately. I think it's more about trying, how should I say, influencing also others without authority. Because I think, yes, in terms of number of people working in the special expertise, the numbers might have decreased because they were moved also to the business teams. But in this new way of working, in this new way of leading, you shouldn't only lead because of people reporting to you. And I think we have very good examples there where people say, okay, I'm a service provider who gives a very lean governance that people can understand, that people follow. Because I mean, for example, we have products that can be really dangerous. So you need to be compliant with a lot of regulations as well. So it's not about, do we need them or not need them? We desperately need them. And I think this bureaucracy, I think, is a topic that is not going away easily. And you need to also balance that out. What's the right mix? So I think at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what is the value add of each one of us, of each team, to become more user-centric and a more performance place to work and have success on the market. And there, I think it can be very inclusive to not only left and right, but to really value the contribution of the different teams.
Very interesting. as another follow-up question, so you have a purpose team, you have an execution team, a value stream team, and then a sales team, an expertise team, all working together. Mm-hmm. How is this possible? Is there any kind of hierarchy? Is there any kind of agile process that you use to help them to coordinate and to create value together? Is it flat or not really?
I mean, it is much flatter than before, but we still have certain hierarchies in there. And I think when you look at the business team, I think it's really, we have what we call a purpose team, which is like really the people who work on these innovative ideas, that is cross-functional background. And then when we have, for example, the plants or the assembly lines, of course, they're usually on a different location than the purpose teams. I think I mean, yes, it's a new, how should I say, interface. It's a new link that has not existed before, that needs to be trained and enabled. However, we can say that it's valued on both sides, all right? It's valued on the side of the plant perspective, that really employees on the assembly line know what kind of products they develop for which kind of market. They are much closer to the market idea now. And on the other hand side, we have like people from marketing and engineering who never cared too much about the plant's work. I mean, not only workers, but the challenges of the plant, who have now an understanding actually a bottleneck in a plant has a direct impact on getting my products on the market. So I think it's getting this holistic picture from innovation to bring it to the market that is really the benefit here.
We've been talking a lot about the benefits for the market and the customers. Is there a benefit for the colleagues, the employees, the individuals working in the organization? Have you seen any change in their engagement, in how they relate to each other's, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, to be very honest, we have always been a company where the people were very proud to work for, right? So we didn't also start the Agile Transformation because we felt that people totally don't want to work for Bosch Power Tools. But what we see at the moment is like when we talk to people, when we see on how from the outside perspective, people want to come to join Power Tools, I think we see a big increase in terms of job satisfaction or employee satisfaction from the internal perspective, but also on attracting new talent from the outside. There is very strong indicators that we're on the right track. And I think that's something we can be proud of, but also something which keeps us motivated to further work on this topic.
And what about leadership? Has leadership changed in this more cross-functional, more transparent, more fluid environment, or the traits you're looking for have remained the same?
I think the leadership is changing, and it's a big cultural change as well. I think what is here important that we put a lot of effort to communicate much more openly across hierarchies, from the top to the bottom, right? That we try to create a more safe environment to speak up, to say, you know what, we have an issue, let's talk about it. And I think this creates an atmosphere where actually strong leadership, and with strong, I don't mean, you know, command and control in terms of I tell you what to do, but really strong leadership. If you call it agile, digital, or positive leadership, I think that the acronyms are similar, but to be visionary and coaching for your associates, to challenge them, but also to back them up if there's an issue, and to really ask them to contribute together and not only look at you to hide behind you or to wait until you find the mistakes that are out there, right? To have this more collaborative approach while still feeling accountable to driving the team forward. I think it's always a balancing out, right? But we really wanted to focus also on the positive aspects, because we truly believe that focusing on the positive there and in creating an environment where people love to work creates the highest also impact on the market for us as a company.
And can people choose where to sit, which team to stay, which products to work, for which customers to create value, or are they assigned to the team by the leadership, their bosses? How fluid is this structure?
I mean, in terms of fluidity, I think there's one big thing which we did when we transformed our 6 business units, and we didn't do them, you know, in one big shot. It was like a iterative approach, one business unit after another. We basically gave the people certain important messages from my perspective. So first is your job, your value contribution is really appreciated. And we see you also in the new organizational setup as an important player. So that kind of gives you a safeguard. The second question is, the second point is, we made a proposal to each employee to say, looking at your history, looking at your expertise, we definitely see you in this business team because you have been working on the grinding products or on the fixing products the last couple of years. This is where we would see you. Do you agree? So we had a one-on-one conversation with each of them to say, and we recorded also if there was a wish to change to a new role, like a new agile role, the product owner, agile master, or a leadership position in the new setup, or if you want to change rather to an expertise team or to another business team. The wishes were mostly fulfilled. In other areas, we said, okay, we cannot fix it now, but let's take in a time horizon. The second message, however, next to the safety implications that I just mentioned, was also to say, if you want to have a leadership position, if you want to have one of the new agile roles, it's actually not somebody will assign that to you. You need to actively apply for it. So we also didn't want to say, Jochen, today your engineering department head, tomorrow your business team owner A, because we see it's more about a psychological effect. We wanted that people proactively think what is expected from me in a new role and proactively apply for it rather than putting people from left to right and expect then totally different things from them. No.
Okay, and let's maybe look now a bit at the top of the organization. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about the teams and cross teams dynamics, but who has sponsored this? So where is this coming from, organizational speaking? And has strategy also being open up into this process? So are the teams able to come up with a new strategy for their product, for their segment, or are they receiving something that has been prepared by somebody higher in the hierarchy?
Yeah, from speaking about our senior management at Power Tools, I think we have a very strong support for moving forward with this agile transformation topic. That is clearly not only shown by me and my small project team working directly for our CEO, but we are also working very closely with them. We have an open dialogue with them to show them the iterative status. So we have a strong buy-in from the senior management team, and they totally behind it, what we are doing, and really give us a lot of support in that area, and also challenge us if we think we are not bold enough, right? The second topic concerning the strategy, I think it's a mixture of bottom up and top down, because yes, we have an overall holistic PT strategy. Where does PT wants to move forward? That is created from the senior management team, but not only from Power Tools, but from the different from the different business units leads. But then we have, in the business units, we have business unit strategies, and then also how these business teams fit into that. I think I really like to speak about guardrails. You know, if you're in one of the business units, a business team, the business unit strategy is kind of your guardrail, but it gives you enough freedom to define your own way of how you want to steer your business in that area. And that is something which we did not have before, because it basically ended at the business unit strategy. And now we have even more bottom up, because the business teams are kind of very close to the market and can really shape their business in a way to say, this is my strategy for my business team, and it fits into the overall perspective. There is some alignment, yes, but it's rather from both sides coming there.
Okay, Is there a prize also for employees that went through all of this, effort, exploration, rethinking? What kind of benefits are they reaping in terms of, incentives, in terms of career, in terms of possibility for learning? What's in it for them?
Yeah. I think there are different angles to put it that. I think the Bosch overall, and I don't speak only about PT, is very advanced in terms of how we have our different bonus systems, because I think here it's much more about working on a team level and not working on individual bonuses. I think that's a thing that is very, very valid for Bosch overall, but helps us a lot at PT. Incentivize, I think we have very good new roles to offer, which give you new perspectives. We have a huge initiatives together with HR to have really also a new learning mindset and culture in the company. Because while I said at the beginning, learning a new expertise is something totally crucial, and where we see also as a German engineering company with the background in it, a long history in it, we also want to focus to say, guess what? You need to also learn new skills more rapidly. It's not about knowing everything about a specific segment, but also being very flexible to adjust to learn something new, right? It's about rapid learning rather than going down the rabbit hole always in too much detail. We have a fantastic, with implementing the business teams, we have fantastic new opportunities to work with real impact. So I think there's plenty of room to develop. There is also great new opportunities when you look into the digital space, into the sales area. So I think there's more to choose from than a couple of years ago.
And maybe let's also talk about the journey, because we discussed broadly the implications and the outcomes. But as you were remarking at the beginning, it has been quite a long journey. Can you mention any challenge that you met, and any lessons learned that you acquired while going through it, in terms of how people responded, what they asked you, and what maybe wasn't expected in their reactions?
Perhaps I can start there because the reference to our senior management team earlier. I think one of the biggest boldness from our senior management team was the following: to start such a huge endeavor, such a huge transformation, without setting a clear milestone plan, a clear go-live state, a clear expectation on work packages. Because they're very bold enough to say, if we want to become an agile transformed company, we cannot run it with a regular change project, which would basically say, set a milestone, set a work package, and really go and run, right? And I think I'm very happy that our management team supported us in that. And my learning is that it takes a while that people realize they can really co-create. It's one side to really say, yes, you can be involved, but then when you stand in front of the project team to say, yes, let's go co-create, and they say, where are my work packages? And you say, there are none, we need to define them ourselves. Then you have a very first disappointing, or people don't believe you. And then when they realize they can really co-create, then it's like all light bulbs go up and on, right? And that's just fascinating to see. Challenges I see, in addition, I would say this underestimation of how important, for example, continuous communication is. So we always wanted to go in and not present the high-fly slides approved by everybody, but rather the iterative statuses on no PowerPoints, but rather on a brown paper and Post-its at the time. And I think that's continuous communication is an effort you really need to plan in. This is really important. The other challenge we saw along the journey is to make the people understand what is expected of them in the new organization, right? And this is, if you're a company with 20,000 people, to talk one-on-one is a challenge itself. So perhaps you need to group the people a little bit, but you need to make it much more personal than having like one big video stream and 20,000 people listening to it. It's like really going in a very intense dialogue with the associates to say, why are we doing that? Do you have a problem with that? What are your concerns? What are your hopes in that, to really shape the future together? And I think this process takes longer than if you know exactly what to do. But I think it's worth the effort to really make a substantial change. And that's what we wanted to do. And I think that's, so there are always challenges around there, but I think that's some of the learnings we took out of the journey so far.
And were you able to start with a big bang, involving all the business units and transforming all of them at once, or had you to go through steps, iterations, starting from some segments, some teams, some areas? How do you approach that?
We had some lighthouse projects at the very beginning and then we saw very good success with those lighthouse projects. And then what we decided is we set clearly the expectation that this journey is there for every business unit. We started the journey to say there's enough freedom for each business unit to define their own way. And we did an iterative approach, because as you don't know where you really want to go or what are your milestones, it would be a total mistake, from my understanding, to do a big bang with all 6 business units, but rather start with one business unit, learn from it, go to the next one. So we did an iterative approach, but all 6 business units plus all what we call our central functions also underwent this journey in an iterative approach. Yeah.
And as a final question, what's the way ahead? Is there any other step that you are already imagining or working in terms of maintaining the momentum and keeping the evolution going?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a very valid question. I personally think if you're on this journey, the best mindset you can have is there is no end. Right? That's the best mindset. Now, that's a challenge for many people in itself, right? But to be very honest, if you look in the mirror, the life itself is a journey, right? And the end is something we don't look forward to for most of us, right? So to look for this end state, I think is like, I recently read, if the environment around you is changing dramatically, I think you need to keep up with the speed internally as well. I mean, if the environment would, for some reason or another, slow down dramatically, then perhaps you can lean back a bit. But I think we don't see that in any industry and no parts of the world. So I think you need to be always ready and to rapidly change to the existing changing environment that you see out there. Yeah. So from my perspective, hopefully, or I see it also from us, the journey is never over. You need to constantly adapt and improve.
And I think you made a great point. Bosch is a historical organization, successful organization, big organization, apparently also in a traditional market, and still you managed to launch this deep evolution, and you are going with this evolution, and you are not stopping. Mm-hmm. Is this a message for those organizations that find a bit of excuses saying, in my industry, this is not possible, or for my company, given its history or culture, this is not possible, or any other excuse that we often use to explain why we don't want to change, or we don't want to infuse the ability to change into the organization? What would you tell them?
I mean, if you want to find an excuse, there's always a way to find an excuse. But on the other hand, if you look around, and I think the people listening to this know very well what I'm talking about, in that aspect, what we speak about these evolutionary changes or change in organizations, we don't speak about a specific industry. So it's not we speak about the consumer goods business or the power tools business. We don't speak about a specific size, I would even say. Yes, we are 20,000 people. Other people are 5,000. There are probably other people, I talked to somebody in the pharmaceutical, there are 100,000. So size is not really the problem, right? The question we see is, do you really base your transformation journey on similar principles, right? There you find a common group of people, organizations that think the same way. And is it banking? Is it consumer goods, pharmaceutical? That should empower, or at least give the people the courage and the boldness to say, why not me? I think that's the better question to ask. If people say, can I change or not change? Why not? I mean, that's the only constant in life is change, to be very honest. And if you like it or not.
I think we raised a bit the bar. I'm going to remove some of the excuses. So yeah, let's invite all those looking at this conversation to start experimenting. This is really the goal of the EEO conversations, providing examples, but also nudging a bit of courage that seems Bosch really put on the table with great results, in a big organization and in relatively short times. Thank you so much for your insights, and please keep us updated about the next steps.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Emanuele, for having me.
Thank you so much. What's the relationship between Agile and Rendanheyi? Bosch Power Tools organizational journey offers an insight into one of the most frequent questions we get when it comes to AIR. Cross-functional, multidisciplinary, self-managed teams typical of Agile transformations represent a very effective ignition point to explore the extremely decentralized and autonomous characteristics of microenterprises. So our first answer to our question is then that even basic Agile implementations can be considered a privileged initial condition for entrepreneurial ecosystem enabling organizations. And still, in large and traditional firms such as Bosch, fully independent teams are ready enough to address the varied, fluid, rich, and interdependent needs demonstrated by the market. Vertical responsibilities and competencies quickly become mandatory to guarantee the expected level of quality and specialized action at play. So with fragmentation, ways to dynamically reconnect smaller units into larger aggregations of microenterprises and teams immediately become crucial. Quite uniquely among global enterprises, Bosch Power Tools tackled also this requirement by giving structure to business teams through subgroups: the execution, the value stream, the purpose team, all of them working together in an embryonic manner. This is the same collaboration dynamic that inspired the emergence of ecosystem micro communities. But with a major difference. In this case, the number, 3 of them, the nature, organized by functional competence, and the context, the broader business unit of the sub-teams remain the same across the organization, while the Rendanheyi, of course, they may dramatically vary. So we can consider this design solution a version of the EMC contract that is simplified and optimized on the products, services, and capabilities required by the European giant. A final confirmation from today's interview is the seemingly universal need of recognizing the common, recurring, and standardizable services all or most units necessitate for efficiently delivering on their mandate. Knowledge sharing, security, sales, quality, methodologically taking care of the effectiveness of work processes in Bosch fall in what the Rendanheyi would consider shared services platforms, while the 6 business units collectively define high-level strategic bets as industry platform will do for AIR. All in all, the multinational engineering and technology company confirms how European leaders, even in traditional sectors such as manufacturing, and in countries with a strong worker representation, are well positioned to achieve stronger business performance by rethinking their internal structure in line with the Rendanheyi. It's entrepreneurship, transparency, and systemic reduction of inefficiency can be considered a sort of agile on steroids, with solutions not only able to unlock the potential of the individual and the team, but also to reshape all organizational layers and to maximize the value for the customer and the motivation of the internal workforce.